Hello, everyone, and welcome to Café New Canadians. In this session of Café New Canadians, we will be learning about Financial 101 and a lot about budgeting, banking, and finding more information about finances in Canada. So, a very warm welcome to everyone who has joined us. My name is Shruti Dargan. I will be joined by two amazing speakers today. We have with us Nalini Chariandy and Paschal Okwundu, who will both be sharing lots of advice for you related to finances in Canada, in understanding more about finances, even if you're new to Canada or if you're planning to move here soon. So without further ado, let's hear from our speakers a little bit about themselves so that you can learn more, ask the right questions, and then we'll be diving straight into the discussion. What I forgot to mention earlier was Café New Canadians is brought to you by New Canadians TV Network. And we will be sharing a little bit more about us and our speakers and their ventures soon into the chat. So let's get started, Nalini, with a little bit about you, please.
Hi, well, as you know, my name is Nalini. I came to Canada 21 years ago with my husband and two kids. My kids were 3 and 4. All I can say is I spent the first year unable to get a job. So I am a great believer. If you can't earn, you better know how to save. So my mantra is it's not how much you earn, it's how much you save. So I spent my first year trying to figure out how to save money. And you need to know I've always been an accountant. I worked in the UK, I worked in Trinidad, I worked all over the world. And to be able to have to stay home with children for an entire year almost drove me crazy. But I will say it gave me the time to figure out the systems in Canada. And that's the most important part. The banking system. What is federal? What is provincial? What is municipal? How do you save money? And what I am here to offer you guys is a perspective on your first year in Canada. Because whether you're coming here or you are here already, there are details that you need to know. It's finance for an immigrant is very different from finance for a Canadian. We're starting with no credit, no job history. So we start from the bottom up, and we literally, you can't even get a car loan because you have no credit history. So what I would love to talk to you guys about is how to get started, how not to be frustrated, and how to stay married in this chaos.
Wonderful. And Nali, you're also the author of this book called The Maple Leaf Effect. If you could very briefly share with our viewers what that book is, because it also includes tips related to handling finances in Canada, but also how you can thrive in Canada as a newcomer, as a traveler. Just very briefly, if you could introduce the book as well, please.
Certainly. I wrote that book because I struggled a lot, and I thought I was going to be really rough and mean in that book. But after 10 or 15 years, you get a sense of humor. And I wrote about how you figure out what school to put your kids in. I wrote about how to avoid. I mean, if you come from a small country, you come into a country of excess, big cars, big money, big houses, and how do you deal with that? So I wrote about schools. I wrote about how to avoid the trap of the Joneses next door, how you stop competing with your neighbors. You just got here. You have time. So school, children, finances, and the importance of filing a tax return in the first year you're here. Canada gives you a lot of tax benefits. If you don't file, they don't know what to give you. So a lot of that is in the book.
Wonderful. And we'll be hearing more about the book and from you just in a bit. Paschal, without any further ado, if you could introduce yourself and let me tell the viewers, you're also the CEO and founder of Binta Financial. If you could tell our viewers a little bit about that as well, please.
Sure, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Paschal. I'm the CEO and founder of Binta Financial. I moved to Canada not as long as Nalini did. I moved into Canada 8 years ago as an international student from Nigeria. And I've been through every layers of the newcomer journey. I've gotten rejections from landlords so many times because I did not have credit history. I've searched for jobs for a long time without finding them. I've been an employee myself. I've hired people working for companies. I've been fired before. I've had to deal with financial stress myself. And today I'm building this great company that is supporting immigrants coming from all over the world into Canada and helping them find their footing in Canada, building their credit history in Canada, accessing financial services, and most importantly, avoiding the same mistakes that some of us made when we came to Canada. So that's my journey. I spent most of my years working in banking in Nigeria, and I also spent the time working in banking here in Canada. I was focused on working with people and businesses in helping them access more money and become more successful in Canada. So my journey in Canada has been a very interesting one. In the short time that I've been here, I've seen different size and shapes of the country, and I'll be sharing some of that with you in this conversation.
And we're so looking forward to that. Now, you've both introduced yourselves and shared a little bit about the importance of also learning what you did in your own journeys and how that's important for our viewers. Let's get started with a chat about, why is it important for newcomers to be financially aware and have that financial resilience in them? Because finances in Canada may not necessarily look very different from wherever we move from as immigrants, but the financial system is so different. There's so much in terms of concepts that might be completely new to us. So talk to us a little bit. Paschal, I'll ask you first about the importance of being financially aware from the get-go, when somebody plans to move to Canada, to their first day here and onwards.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think most people, maybe I shouldn't say most, but a lot of people who travel to Canada are coming because they are in search of greener pastures, right? You want to make more money, you want to live in a more comfortable environment, you want peace, you want security and all of that. And if you think about the core objective why most people come to Canada, money is usually within the core of that conversation. Now, if you look at the top 10 sources country for PRs that come into Canada, for example, from India to China, Philippines, Nigeria, and the rest of them, I think that you will see that the financial system of these countries are totally different from what we have in Canada. So I came from Nigeria and I spent 8 years working in banking in Nigeria. But when I came into Canada, the financial system was a totally confusing maze to deal with. And even with my banking experience, I still struggle to understand how does this whole financial system work. So I think it's one of the things that newcomers really need to understand. And the reason why that is very important is if you are not financially aware, you don't know how the system works, you don't know why tax filing is important, you don't know what credit history or credit score is, you've always used cash all your life, right? And then you show up here and everybody is telling you, get this credit card, build your credit, report your rent and all of that. And you're like, I haven't done this before. Like, what does that even mean? The problem with not knowing in Canada when it comes to financial matters is that it can cost you so much. Beyond the fact that you'll be missing out on some great opportunities after you file your tax, is also the fact that you can make some very serious mistakes. I've seen people who had cash but cannot afford to buy, cannot get a mortgage simply because they had destroyed their credit history out of ignorance. So being in Canada and not being financially aware is a very, very dangerous place to be for a newcomer. Like, let's think about this.
Yes.
Immigrating is very challenging. The last thing you want to add on that whole complexity is complicating your life as far as finances are concerned in Canada. It can really create a lot of mental stress for you. So that's something you really want to be very aware of. And on the part of financial resilience, maybe I'll let Nalini go and then I'll talk about that piece a bit more.
It was a perfect segue also because you mentioned that moving to Canada itself or moving to a new country could be stressful in itself and one doesn't want to complicate it. And that's where resilience is key. It's a theme, Nalini, you've in a way explored in your book as well. Talk to us a little bit from your experience, people that you've engaged with, why that resilience is key in being able to kind of, one, keep one's sanity and calm here as a newcomer and explore this new life.
Okay. Well, first of all, let me tell you that trying to teach financial literacy in schools in Canada So if you come here and you don't know, don't feel badly. They don't have it pat here at all. They're trying to teach children in school finally about debt and income, and it's about time. But we're adults coming from a different financial system. Why is it important? It is important because you can get trapped very easily into being separated from your money. Now, banks now do a great job of offering newcomer packages. So lower interest, no charges on accounts. You do not have to put a deposit to get a credit card. Those are relatively new things. When I first came to Canada to get a credit card so I can get a phone, I had to give one of the banks $2,500 to keep for 2 years. Things have changed now. But if you go to a bank, you need to go to a bank that will offer you the best newcomer package. All the banks are competing for your money now. Newcomers are a source of income. You need to compare. We have several banks in Canada. You can compare, you can walk in and say, I'm a newcomer. What do you have for me? And they are going to try and get your business. Why is it important to be financially literate and be aware of your choices? I will tell you a story about myself getting trapped. There's something in Canada called tide selling. It means that you can be offered something. For example, let's use cable TV and telephone. They come from the same company. The telephone company cannot tell you, give me both or I won't give you anything. Those are two separate services. They have to offer them separately, but they can bundle it and give you a discount. When I was buying insurance for my car, I was told by a very well-known company that we can't insure your car unless you let us insure your life. And it was still cheaper than some of the other quotes I got. So I got both insurances. 3 years later, I went back to the same insurance company and I said, I'd like to insure another car. We're doing better. I have a second car. Their response is, now can we have the insurance on your other child's life? And that's when I realized something is wrong here. And
it's a way of exploiting newcomers.
Yes, they're exploiting you. That is not the law. The law is they can bundle the services and give you a discount, but they cannot say you can't get this unless you buy that. Now, this is why it's so important to be aware. I mean, I'm not going to call any names, but it's a very well-known company. They should not be doing that. So I reported them to the head office and instantly got an amazing rate on my insurance, by the way, because they had to make up for the terrible things they did. So be aware, and if you're not sure, ask. Ask your friends, ask your neighbors, ask anybody. So another reason, you're not alone in Canada. Ask people.
A large part of today's chat is something that I want to focus on budgeting and making smart financial decisions as well. But I think before that, with what Paschal also introduced is building credit. So let's learn a little bit about traditional banking in Canada. What are some steps that one needs to take when they're moving to Canada? Can one open an account before they're here, before they actually immigrate? Or would it be beneficial to kind of come here, land, go to a bank, learn about the various offers? Like Nalini mentioned, there are lots of newcomer-focused offers, banking products that are offered by various banks over here. What would be some good steps? Paschal, if you could introduce us to that, please.
Yeah, so I think moving to Canada and opening an account before you come is possible. And that's something that Binta is also building as well, to give newcomers a chance to open an account from India, from China, before you get to Canada. And that's something that is currently available as well. In terms of what people need to do to better set themselves up on their way to Canada, I will strongly, strongly recommend that you find time to read trusted resources, right? I think part of the problem is that there's so much information out there, you can get lost trying to find the right one. That's the first part. The second piece is there's so much information out there that sometimes people speak different things, right? So if you can look for sources that is published, things that are published by the CRA, IRCC, I know they have segments to talk about finances, bank accounts, like which ones do you need? What do they all mean? I think those resources can really help position people to be very aware in terms of what they need to do. Now, on the part of should you open an account before you come to Canada, or do you want to get here before you do so? I think it now comes to like personal preferences. But know that if you come to Canada and you have resources back home in your country, let's say you're in Nigeria, you have, say, $1 million, right? You have to find a way to justify moving that money, showing the source of it and all of that. So being able to find the right information would actually help people better set themselves up. And as Nalini mentioned earlier, don't be too hard on yourself, right? This whole complex financial system, we are all in it. We're still figuring it out every day, every time. And be very patient in the process of trying to learn and understand how the system works. If you keep reading, keep asking questions. I know that talking to friends is great, but the only caution I put on that is if your friend is ignorant, then he's going to share both his wisdom and his ignorance on top of what you have. So you want to be very careful with how you get advice from people, which is why I would always recommend you pay more attention reading trusted resources to learn.
Well, there's a lot of advice that I think friends and family who've already been here can share. Finances may not always be the right topic to take advice from just about anyone. You're so right. It's important to kind of go to the right source and get accurate information. Some of that information, of course, can be found in credible resources such as Nalini's book, I could say Binta Financial as well, that breaks down more complex concepts for newcomers to be able to better understand how they can build credit, and also New Canadians as a platform, whether it's a chat like this at Café New Canadians that we're having, or lots of articles and videos on our website wherein you can learn about finances, integration, just finding success in Canada and understanding more about Canadian culture and life is something that at least I would strongly recommend. Another concept that, and before that actually, Nalini, is there something you'd like to add about banking? And at this point, I'd also want to maybe remind our viewers that this is a session wherein you have the option of asking questions. So whether you're joining us here on Zoom or on YouTube, you can use the Q&A button here or the chat function on YouTube to ask your questions. There are a few questions that some of our viewers shared beforehand, which I will be bringing up as well to our speakers. But Nalini, any comments that you have or advice that you would have related to banking in Canada for our viewers?
Get to know your banker. You know, there's a standing joke, be good to God and your banker. You have to get to know your banker. So if you're in Canada and you decide you're going to open an account and you go to the main banks, you ask them the question, who is my personal representative? I want to get to know them. I want to talk to them. I want to be able to reach them by email. Because you do not want to restart a conversation every single time you go into the bank with somebody else. So ask for a personal representative. They will give you one. They will assign you one. If you're not happy with that person, you can ask for another one. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Banking is a personal relationship. It's your money. And there's nothing more personal than your money. So get to know your banking rep.
Wonderful. Now let's dive a little bit into building credit as well. Paschal and Nalini, both of you earlier mentioned, how it's so important, especially Paschal, when you mentioned, that we, as immigrants, we could be moving from a country wherein cash is something that we're far more used to than actually using our credit cards. But here in Canada, there's lots of benefits of using your credit card, of building credit, having a good credit score that affects, when you're probably investing in a property later, and so many other factors. If you could break down that concept for our viewers, for them to understand what is it that they need to know about building credit and what would be key steps that they can take to have a good head start.
All right. I think we'll need a symposium of 3 hours to talk about this, but let me try and keep it as brief as possible. So credit, as we all know, is I don't want to use the word abstract because sometimes it doesn't make sense to people, right? Like I have cash, you're asking me to take a credit card. So a credit card is not credit. So the whole concept of credit is really based on your financial behavior in the past. So your credit score is a reflection of how you have taken money from a bank, used a credit card, or taken a loan from another company, and how you've been able to use that loan over time. So what a credit report does is it gathers all of your financial behavior on the loans you've taken in the past, and then summarizes that into a document or a profile. And then it will now compute all of those information based on different metrics and assigns a score to you. Now, that score ranges sometimes from, say, 300 to 900 if you are in Canada. If you have 300, then that's a very red danger zone. You are likely going to be denied for any kind of loan you apply for. There's a high chance that you get rejected. If your score is somewhere around, say, beyond 650 and above, that's somewhere that is looking good. You can actually go as high as 870, 890. I've seen people that have 890 now. Now, the reason why that score is important is if you look at how the whole credit system works, right? The whole 5 C's of credit, your credit history and score describes your behavior, right? Which is how well you've been able to take a loan or use a credit card and pay it back. Now, if you want to rent a house as a newcomer, there is a very high chance that the landlord in question is going to ask you for your credit history, meaning they want to see how well you've been able to borrow and pay back. Unfortunately, for most newcomers, they don't have credit history, right? And that's part of the problem that Binta is solving. So Binta is actually, we are bringing your credit history from India, from overseas to Canada, so that the landlord can see something that they can hold on to and say, okay, I think I can see this and make a decision about the person. So your credit score, your credit history becomes a very key part of your existence in the Canadian financial system. To a large extent, it can determine whether you are able to access mortgage, car, and all types of loans that can make your life easier if you choose to go down that route. Your credit score, your credit history is a key component to that. I've made tons of mistakes when it comes to credit history, and I learned the hard way. And maybe when we have another time, I can go into details of what they were and how you can fix yours if you've damaged it very badly. But your credit history is like the core of your financial experience in terms of what you can and cannot access here in Canada. That's how critical it is.
Nalini, Paschal mentioned some mistakes that he probably made in his early days in Canada, learned the hard way. I'm curious to know what your experience was like with building credit as a newcomer many years ago, how things have changed, and what advice you would have for our viewers.
Okay, so I cheated because I'm an accountant. I'm very familiar with credit. What I would say is everybody's going to throw a credit card at you. Walmart is going to throw a credit card at you. Hudson Bay, any store you walk in, they're going to try and give you a credit card. Don't take it. Don't take it. I don't care if you're getting 10% extra discount, 20%. That is trouble. When you come to Canada, get one credit card with a limit of $5,000, and that's it. Until you know that you can handle one credit card. And the reason for that is it's easy. Credit card feels like money in your pocket, and it doesn't feel, and it's not. It's you're borrowing. It's a loan. So start with one credit card. Learn to pay off that credit card every time you spend it. There's online banking now. Learn to go home and immediately pay off the credit card. Credit history is a very odd thing in Canada. It is, because I used to pay off my credit card all the time. One month I had a balance of $45 because I didn't pay it off in time for when that credit report came out. Then the following month, life was busy. I have kids. It went to $90. My credit limit was $5,000. So I called up I think it was TransUnion or Equifax, and I said, why? What happened here? Because my credit score dropped by 100 points. I said, why would my credit score drop by 100 points? They told me the balance on my credit card doubled. It did not matter if it doubled from 200 to 400, 1,000 to 2,000. It doubled from 45 to 90. And I lost 100 points on my credit score. So learning to manage your credit score, it takes work. It takes effort. It's not a simple thing. But start with one credit card, because when you have 5 and 6 credit cards, which is what they're going to throw at you in Canada, because people get very, you know what, you're a newcomer, who isn't startled by all the bright lights and all the consumerism and all the big things you can get? In my first year here, I must have eaten so much Cadbury chocolate. I mean, if I had put Cadbury on my credit card, it would have been over 5K. It's easy. So start with a small limit and one credit card, which you and your husband or you and your spouse or your partner share. And then there's another thing. Be careful about putting it on your phone. I never lose my wallet, but I lose my phone all the time. People have a way, if they get to your phone, your banking information is on your phone. A lot of people pay with their phone. Until you have enough security on your phone, do not put your credit information, your banking information, don't use the banking apps until you have learned to be careful with those things.
That's key piece of advice there from both of you. Let me bring up a question that one of our viewers, Shantanu, shared with us earlier. This is, as we're discussing credit scores, what would you say, Paschal or Nalini, both of you could answer this. What is considered to be a decent credit score? Paschal, you mentioned from 300 to 900. What would be a comfortable score that if people were to go check their banking apps today, that they would feel comfortable? And also any tips that you would share about maintaining that score?
Should I go first? Okay.
Sure, please.
You need to be over 700. You need to be over 700 to be able to get things done. You need to be over 700 to get a phone, because when you go to get a phone, they want your credit card. When you go to get services, they want your credit card. When you want to put electricity in your house or internet in the house, they want your credit card. So if you don't think you can if you need to build credit, start small. If you start even with a credit card at $2,500, you cannot get into trouble. You just can't. If you start with one at $10,000, I promise you, you'll be in trouble before the end of the month ends.
Paschal, anything you'd like to add here?
Yeah, sure. So I think people should aim to build a good history versus just the score. So the score sometimes doesn't tell the full story, right? You can actually have an 750 score, but you have some historic issues in your report that can cause you to be denied. Okay, so if you've had past due payments, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and then you've built your score to say 750, maybe after it dropped, the bank is still going to pick that information in the past and ask you what happened. You did not pay some loans that you took out on time. You did not service your credit card on time. You had a parking ticket somewhere. You did not service it. So those now become the conversations around the character of the person beyond the score that the person has. So you want to be careful when you have, like Nalini mentioned, if you have issues on your credit report, which I always recommend people try as much as you can to get a report of your credit history from Equifax or TransUnion. Try to do that as often as you can. When I say often, not on a monthly basis, right? But try to get that even if it's quarterly or twice a year. Run through the report. Sometimes it's about 30 pages. Run through the report and see if there are any discrepancies on things that you do not understand. When you see those items, raise them with the credit bureau and get them fixed. If you wait till when you want to buy a house or when you want to buy the next business or do something that requires the bank to check your credit score, that might be very problematic. It might cost you to pay more in interest or even get denied if you're not careful. So that's part of what I'm going to add to what Nalini said.
A follow-up question here. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I just need to add this, that a lot of banks now give you free access to your credit score. I know, for example, Scotiabank does, and when you click on it, it's not an inquiry. You just get to see what's your score. A really important part of it is it shows you the history. And if there's something there that turns up that you don't know about, a car loan, that is your opportunity to say, hey, there's a problem, and raise the alarm. Looking at your report, as you mentioned here, it's so important because you will pick up what's wrong. I mean, for example, I paid off one of my first mortgage, the first house I bought. Yet that remained on my report for 2 years after. And I'm like, guys, I don't have a mortgage. I have a different mortgage. Why is this here? And it's up to us to correct them. So it's very important if you have access to a free report, you don't have to join Equifax or TransUnion. Most banks give it to you. Look at it.
2 follow-up questions here, one of which was sent in by a viewer. which is more about would the credit score that you see on banking apps for whichever banking institution you might be with, are those reliable credit scores? Is that what one can go by? Is there a specific formula as to how they can accurately calculate what the score might be?
So you can try to calculate, right? There are numbers out there. If you check the whole FICO framework, so FICO is a framework that is used to calculate credit scores, right? 35% for this, 20% for that. So if you Google FICO score, you will see that whole framework. But the reality is that if you try to calculate it, your number is never going to match what Equifax and TransUnion has. That's the first piece. To make it even worse, if you check your credit score with Equifax, it's different from what you see in TransUnion. That even raises the complexity of what is going on here. The reason is because the credit bureaus themselves, this is where their secret sauce for their business comes in. So they have their own ways of calculating their credit score beyond the standard framework. So they have a few nuances here and there that helps them adjust, what they see. So to your point around what I see on my banking app, is that reliable? So most of the scores you see that you can access for free, they are only refreshable on a monthly basis. So they are not real-time numbers. So if there is something that happened in your account, if something has changed in the last 2 weeks, you might not see it until the next cycle where that account gets refreshed. So the most reliable information you can get beyond the one that you see in some apps is hits the credit bureaus directly. What you see on that day is very going to be likely what you currently have. So that's the only caveat I'll put on that. What you have on your banking app, it could be reliable, but if something has changed in a few days before you checked it, you might not see it until after 1 month.
The other question is more about, Nalini, you were mentioning credit history, and there could be an inquiry that you see in your account, which is if you had a late payment, if you had some issues with maybe making a payment on time earlier. And those inquiries, depending on which province you're in, could last on your history for anywhere between like 6 to 9 years or more. Any tips that you have for, that could be concerning for, say, a newcomer who's here, or for someone who's been here a few years, and when they see that on their app, that would be concerning because they might have reached a point wherein they're probably now looking at buying a house or making bigger financial decisions. Any advice that you have related to that?
Well, people are going to hate me when I say this, but pay on time, one. And two, if there's something that's an extraordinary circumstance, call TransUnion, Equifax, try to talk to them, try to explain the situation, provide evidence to show that this is not a fair representation of what happened. Because I can upset somebody and they could report me that I have been late with my rent to TransUnion or Equifax, and that is not the case. And I would simply send TransUnion or Equifax my check that says I paid on time. In other words, if you see something that is unfair or incorrect, pick up the phone. You'll be surprised. I have had people help me in Equifax with queries that I didn't think with representation that I did not think was right, and they listened and they opened the case and they did something about it.
Yeah, can I just add something to that? So most of us, when we come into Canada for the first time, we usually would think that the institutions are very powerful. You can't contest things that you don't agree with. But that's the reverse, actually. The consumer protection in Canada is so strong and really takes your case personal. So if you find out that there are issues you do not agree with, please don't think that, oh, I'm dealing with this big bank, this big landlord, I cannot report them. You can actually report. In fact, when you do report, you get good attention from the institutions that you report to. So I would strongly recommend that if this is not something that is familiar with us from our home countries where we are coming from, know that Canada gives you the right to report things that you do not agree with, and you will get attention and audience and investigation.
That's great to know. So, so far we've been able to kind of introduce our viewers to banking in Canada, understanding some financial concepts. We've talked extensively about building credit, maintaining a good credit score. Let's dive into budgeting at this point. because making smart financial decisions also comes with, knowing where you can save money, knowing the little hacks or tricks maybe that newcomers, other friends and family that have, shared those advice with us. And I'm sure that Paschal and Nalini, you have lots to share with us as well. Nalini, I'll come to you first for this. From your experience, early newcomer days, or something that you'd like to kind of just reflect on now, what would be some ways of making smarter decisions, especially when someone moves here and is living in one of the bigger cities? There's a high cost of living in Canada. The rents are really high. Talk to us a little bit about the situation in general, what it's likely, what is one likely to spend, say, in a month, and then some tips to save money on groceries, transportation, and anything else.
Okay, I think what you're likely to spend will depend on where you are. Mississauga is very different from Barrie, is very different from Toronto. But what I can offer is that you have to determine where is your biggest expense? What is causing an issue? In my first year here with 2 kids and a husband and no job, he had a job, I did not. Groceries were a problem. Grocery bills were a problem. So I got a credit card that gave me points for groceries. I got a Loblaws MasterCard, and I used that. I put a stick of gum on it. I put everything on it. And every week I was getting $10 worth of free groceries every single week. So you might be there sitting, maybe you're an immigrant that has a little more money, or maybe you want to get a points card that has travel points so you can go home. You need to determine what is your priority. If you're okay with the groceries because maybe you're lucky enough to have your parents living with you and they're home cooking from scratch every day, wonderful. But if you don't and you're buying pre-made meals, or you determine what's your priority. Is it travel? Is it cash back? Is it groceries? If it is groceries, you can get a credit card that gives you points and your grocery bill gets reduced every month. Phone, if you have children, or even if you're just a husband and wife or a single person, we have Rogers, we have TELUS, we have Bell. They're very similar. But what you can do is not go to Rogers, not go to TELUS, not go to Bell. Go to something like Public Mobile, or one of these companies that you see in the mall. It's just a counter, and they have all the plans of all the phones, and they will compete for your business. And in fact, they have plans that Rogers on their own won't offer. So it's the world today. We need internet. We need a phone. I mean, we use our phone to get passwords to get into our bank. So decide what is important. You need a phone, you need a credit card, you need internet. If you're traveling, get knowledgeable about the system. Try to work. If you're lucky enough, try to find a place to live close to your work. Transit in Canada is ridiculous. It's insane. You can spend a lot of money on transit. If you have to jump on the TTC or the GO train, which is some of the modes of transportation here, you need to know what the Presto card is. It will save you money. So everything has a way to save you money. You just need to find out, where is your money leaking the most? Is it on food, transportation? Is it on entertainment? Is it on insurance? Another thing I'll quickly drop here. Use an insurance broker. If you are lucky enough to be able to afford a car, use an insurance broker to help you find the cheapest insurance for your car. Do not just ask your neighbor next door. It's free. The insurance broker will tell it. He will explain life insurance to you. He'll explain car insurance to you, and he will give you competing quotes. The same thing with, you want a mortgage. Don't go to the bank. Go to a mortgage broker. They give you better rates, and they force all the banks to compete for your business. So there are ways. You just need to find out where the leak is in terms of how much money you're losing. And if you find you're losing or spending a lot of money in one category, focus on that category.
Thank you for sharing those wonderful tips, Nalini. Before I get to you, Paschal, let me just share a rough breakdown of what expenses could look like for someone who is new. If some of you who are watching us have not moved to Canada yet, probably do not have an idea of what your monthly expenses can look like. What I'm about to share could vary. I'm just sharing rough estimates of, say, within Toronto, Vancouver, Toronto, Ontario, Vancouver, British Columbia, and Montreal and Quebec. An average rent somewhere in downtown for one bedroom could be anywhere upwards of $1,800 to $2,600, $2,800 sometimes. Right now, the rents have come down slightly. So that's roughly what you're looking at. In terms of public transit pass, Nalini just mentioned, it could be really expensive. There are passes available as well, but that would be upwards of, say, $90 or $100, maybe $150 somewhere in Toronto, which would be a monthly pass. Groceries could anywhere, depending on the number of people in your household, if you're an international student, if you're come here with your significant other, if you're here with your family, children, it could look very different. But roughly for a single person, it could be, including your eating out as well, it could look anywhere between, say, $350 to $500, $600 for some. And those are things to keep in mind in terms of your utilities. Your rent may or may not include electricity, heating, water, and that could be an additional $150, $200 as well. And lastly, coming to internet, again, something that we cannot survive without for job search, for general entertainment when you're new here, for just connecting back with your folks in your home country. That is something that you would require as well, and it could be anywhere upwards of 50. Like Nalini mentioned, if you are wiser with your decisions, if you go to companies that can offer competitive plans, you might be able to save some money, but anywhere between 50 to 100 mobile plan as well as your home internet. So that's just to give you an idea of what the rough expenditure can look like. And that's why it's so key to plan right, to budget right, and then to be able to save some money and make smart decisions. Paschal, anything that you'd like to add to what I just shared? Any new figures you'd like to include or advice that you would add to what Nalini has already shared?
Yeah, let me go on the part of advice generally. I think when you come into Canada, you get almost everything given to you on a platter of gold. You get credit card for Walmart, you get credit card for Hudson's Bay. If you're not careful, there might be a credit card for a house very soon. Just kidding. But the reality is that all these things get thrown at you. And suddenly, for most people, you realize that for the first time in your life, you can own things without paying for them. So there's a huge danger in that. The danger in that is if you're not very careful and disciplined, the whole threat to your delayed gratification will be compromised. So what that means is you begin to see things that you probably have desired for a very long time. And all of a sudden, I can get this right now. So you must really learn to separate your needs from your wants. What do you really need? In the very early days, money moves out of your pocket really fast. Ask anyone. So you want to be very careful with the savings you have when you come into Canada. The cash you come with most times, if you're not very careful and prudent, is likely going to be the highest volume of cash for a very long time. Because when you start to spend, what will happen is before you get a job, your savings will deplete. Okay, and if you're lucky, you get a job and then you can start building it all over again. So you want to be careful with your wants and your needs. That's the first piece. The second piece I would recommend is try and have a financial goal, no matter how small that is, right? Something we used to do, my wife and I, when we came in the early days was we have an Excel spreadsheet, right? Before the end of the year, we write down every detail of expense we have in the house. Not that if I buy a pair of chewing gum, I put it there. No, that's not what I mean. But we show how and where money goes, and then we plan for the next year saying, how much money do we want to save? What capital projects do we have? Are we buying a house this year? Like that level of detail is key. And then we are very disciplined on a monthly basis. How much am I contributing from my salary as savings? That amount cannot change. You make the savings first, and then whatever is remaining, you can go spend. So you want to be very careful with how you build a financial plan and goal. I think it's going to help you stay very focused if you are disciplined around that. And it will help you separate what is unnecessary from what is necessary. And one more thing I'm going to add, I've seen a lot of people who come to Canada with so much cash, and they say that, oh, I don't want to take a car loan. Oh, I don't want a car financing. I want to pay cash. Well, sometimes this is a personal decision. but I always will recommend there's so much you can do with cash. And in the whole concept of financial resilience, you always want to make sure that you have cash saved up somewhere as a liquid investment. Guess what? Things happen. Lives happen in Canada. You can lose your job. There could be a recession. Anything can happen. There could be an emergency. You always want to make sure that there is that reserve, that emergency fund where you can always pick money from and not go into any mental distress. That's what I'm going to add.
You made a point, Paschal, that I wanted to bring as well, which is one needs to be prepared to be able to kind of survive on the savings that they come with. Finding a job in Canada could be different for everyone. Some people are able to get a job very quickly. Some might have to wait a couple of months to hear back from companies. And that journey could look very different from different individuals. So it's important that you're able to kind of plan your budgets and plan your finances a certain way so as to be able to survive on the savings that you bring with you and the money that you have with you without losing hope, and to be able to sustain yourself a certain way that you're also maintaining a positive mindset to continue searching for your jobs. That's just something we want to highlight once more. We have some time left, and two other themes that I would want to very briefly discuss would be, Nalini, you mentioned taxes earlier. We're in the tax season right now. Any tips for those who are very new to Canada? There's often a misconception of, if I haven't started earning in Canada yet, do I still need to file taxes? Do I still need to do something about the taxes at all? Do I need to check that? What would be your tip or advice here?
The earliest that you could file a tax return, file it. If you came on December 29th last year, you can file a tax return. And I'll tell you why you need to file a tax return. The first year that my husband and I were here, we went through the year. Then the following year, you file for the year before. We were here for only 6 months of the previous year, but we had to file. We filed, and they asked the question, how much did you make for the year? So we filed 0 for me from the June to December, but they asked also the question, CRA, which is your filing system, how much did you make in Trinidad for the 6 months before you came? I took that money, I took all my pay slips, so it's very important to bring all your tax documents with you, and I changed it into Canadian dollars, and it was below the minimum wage. So I suddenly became low income. So I am now low income, and it's very true. I didn't have a job for another year after that. When I filed, the Canadian Revenue Agency sent me a letter saying, based on my income for last year, which included my income in the country I came from, they said, we are going to give you these things. So we are going to give you this tax credit, that tax credit. I think the credit that helped me the most is that I immediately was in line for child tax benefit. And for those who are out there, why is this important? I think if you have a kid currently now, if you have a kid under the age of 6, you can get up to $7,447 for the year for that kid. If you have a kid between the ages of 6 to 17, I think there's another amount you can get. My point is, we lived on child tax benefit for 2 years between my husband's salary and what I was getting. You have to file. The government will help you in your first year. Be honest. If you make a mistake, call the Canadian Revenue Agency. I made a mistake, and I'm an accountant. I sat down there and tried to do Canadian taxes without any software. I did it with a pen and a pencil. Of course, I got a few things wrong. They called me, and they sent me a notice, and they penalized me. They gave me a penalty. And I called them, and I said, hey, guys, this is my first year here. I'm sorry I messed up. They got rid of the penalty. They helped me with my tax return. The following year, they sent somebody to help me with my tax return. In other words, file as soon as you can. If you're a newcomer, Canadian Revenue Agency has available on their cost and clinics where you can go and take all your stuff, and they will help you prepare your tax returns. The reason you need to file is you're giving away free money that the government is going to help you get on your feet. So file your tax return, even if you have nothing to put in there, put 0 income and file, because that is the beginning of the government being able to say, hey, I see you. let me help you.
Thank you for sharing that advice. Paschal, something that you'd like to add here?
No, that was golden. Nothing to add. Thank you.
Wonderful. So with taxes, the other conversation that I wanted to have, so far we've discussed making smarter decisions, but oftentimes there's also the risk of fraud and scams when it comes to finances. Nalini, you mentioned briefly about, being careful about having banking apps on your phone, or if you have some, for them to be password protected. There's all kinds of other scams as well that, target newcomers to Canada with little financial literacy in a new country, or wherein we're often very careful with what link to click on. We may not necessarily be aware of all of the different institutions, which ones are legal, which ones aren't. There's often a lot of misinformation and ways to be able to target newcomers. Paschal, I'll ask you first and then come to Nalini as well. What would be your advice if around financial fraud and scams in making newcomers more aware of that?
Yeah. So I just wanted to say, when it comes to the issue of fraud and scam, we must understand that the way you have banking, you have healthcare, scam is also an industry, right? Mm-hmm. So the way we have innovation in different industries, there's also innovation happening in scam. What worked 5 years ago is not what the scammers are using today. So you must really be on top of what is going on. And here's my advice for most newcomers. When something looks too good to be true, you want to verify it 5 times before you say yes to it. If you get an email saying all of a sudden, you've landed this big opportunity, that's the exact reason why you should not don't click on any link that you are not familiar with. If you receive a phone call, someone telling you that, oh, we see that you have ABC, your Amazon, whatever has been dispatched, all this email and SMS you get, please don't click on them. If you don't have an RBC account and somebody sends you a text message saying, oh, we've approved you for $10,000 line of credit on your RBC account, you don't have an RBC account. Don't be curious to know, oh, let me see what this is about. That's how you get hooked. So scammers are out there. There is so much going on you cannot imagine. When I was in banking, there is a whole team who work night and day trying to help customers resolve scam issues. So you want to be very careful and never ever say that it cannot happen to you. It can happen to anyone, which is why companies invest so much on cybersecurity to make sure that they are protected. So what I want to say is, as a newcomer to Canada, even if you've been around for a while, you want to be very careful. You want to verify everything you get. If you get a call from someone you're not sure, you said it's your banker, please don't engage if you're not absolutely sure. Do extra due diligence before you engage with people. Is what I recommend.
Wherever possible, also go with the option of two-step authentication. Make sure that if you receive a phone call that says something about your banking institution or says that, it's better not to take action right there and then, but reach out to your bank separately and confirm whether that was true or not. Always prevention, of course, in this case would be far better. And related to scams, we also have an article on our website, which tells you all about main newcomer scams that target those who are new to Canada. That's something we're checking as well. Nalini, coming to you, something that you'd like to add here to help our viewers?
I think I came to Canada at the age of 37 or something like that. And I had been working for 20 years. I worked for Ernst & Young. I worked for several companies. Yet when I came here, I was as scared and as nervous. My mental state was not the same as it was back home in Trinidad. In Trinidad, I was pretty strong. Here, I think that's a lot. Newcomers need support psychologically because you become afraid. I got a phone call maybe 6 months since I came to Canada, and it said, there's something wrong with your papers. We're going to deport you. Well, I thought I was going to have a heart attack. How and who may send that phone call to me? How did they know I was a new immigrant? They didn't know. They just know there are a lot of new immigrants. My husband came home and I was in a state of tears. I'm thinking, I'm getting deported. I must have done something wrong. Mm-hmm. My children will be here by themselves. And I'm a very sensible person, as far as I can think. But the state of affairs of your mind when you first come to Canada, you're just a ball of fare. It doesn't matter how old you are, you're a ball of fare. So all I can say is when things start to happen, step back, slow it down, and ask yourself, wait for somebody before you respond. Wait to even ask your husband, ask the neighbor, ask the dog walker outside. Wait. And as you said, it's, I mean, I just got a scam this morning, Netflix, in my inbox, not even in my spam.
Yes.
Your credit card your credit card has expired. Please click this link. So yes, it looked really official and it didn't go to my spam. But no, did I answer that email? No, I did not. I shut down the email and I went online, logged in, and checked my credit card with Netflix. So you're right. Do not respond. Use a separate line or another form of communication and call either the bank, call Canadian Revenue Agency, call anybody you need to call, but don't use the same link that you got.
Thank you for sharing that. There's also lots of information and resources related to this on the Government of Canada website as well. So like our panelists mentioned earlier, go to trustworthy sources, whether it's the resources we shared earlier. But be careful because it's your hard-earned money that you brought here to Canada and you want to be wise and be careful. With that, we will be wrapping up this session. It was a pleasure speaking with Paschal and Nalini, both of you. I wish we had more time, but just enough to hear one last tip from each of you. If you'd like to share any last do's and don'ts, or maybe one each, or advice for either people who are new to Canada or people who've been here a few years and things that they need to be aware of or careful when it comes to finances. Nalini, I'll come to you first for this, please.
Budgeting is very important. When you don't have money, you need to be very careful with what little you have. So my advice is going to be about groceries. I think most people, when you're new to Canada, you don't realize that groceries have a high end and a low end. Loblaws has no frills. Same stuff, same warehouse, but $1 cheaper or 50 cents cheaper. If you buy 50 items, that's $25 cheaper on your grocery bill that week. Sobeys has Freshco, Metro has Food Basics, Loblaws has no frills. There are ways to save money. If you need to save even more money, so you're now shopping at the lower end grocery, and the goods are the same. It's just the aisles are a little narrower. The people are a little meaner because they're like, oh my God, this is rush time, and it's a little stressful. But the goods are the same. Not only can you shop at the lower end groceries, you can choose not to buy brand names. If you want to buy a broom and a scrubbing brush, you do not need a brand name. You do not need a brand name for tissues. Buy the Walmart brand Great Value. So there are ways that you can cut your grocery bill by almost 50% by thinking about what you want to spend your money on, where you want to spend it.
Thank you for sharing that. Paschal, coming to you in like a minute, if you can share your final advice.
Yeah, I'll echo everything else that has been said. And in addition to that, I will encourage everyone new to Canada, please aspire for the best jobs. They may not be the ones you get first, but please aspire for them. They are possible to get. People get them. If you're not sure how to get them, ask people who have gotten them, what did they do? I think it will reduce the amount of financial stress that you have if you make more money. That's one thing I will add.
Thank you. With that, once again, a very big thank you both to Nalini and Paschal and to the viewers who joined us here live for this chat. We hope we were able to answer your queries and address main concerns that a lot of newcomers have. This chat on finances was part of Café New Canadians, which is brought to you by New Canadians TV Network. We also mentioned resources by Nalini, which is her book, and Paschal, Binta Financial. Those are the links are on the screen for you, and we encourage you to check these links, learn more about the information that they have to provide. And with Café New Canadians, this was brought to you by New Canadians TV Network. We're an information hub in Canada for newcomers and have lots of advice on various platforms. That would be our YouTube channel, our website. If you're in Canada, you can also watch our TV show on Omni Television. and ways to stay in touch to learn about such sessions, more sessions that we have planned for you, and lots of other material and resources would be you can sign up to our newsletter, you can follow us on social media, and that way we will be able to be in touch with you and answer any more concerns that you have and questions. Thank you so much for everyone who joined us. We hope this was helpful. I'll see you in the next one.